So there's a couple of ways that you could go about approaching this. It's probably not a good idea to start out by thinking, okay, I've got 2019 and 2019 and working your way down from there. Because you posted this in a computer science, computer engineering thread or category, I'm thinking that your first instinct is probably to try and program this, which is not a bad idea. So let me go ahead and share some code that I wrote for this. And what we've got here is effectively my version of what's going on. And actually, let me reset this so that we're starting out at 2019 and 2019. And it's probably a good idea for you to pause the video here and see if you can kind of make sense of exactly what's going on in the code that I've written. But I do exactly what the question stem says. And the actual game, if you will, is basically here. Okay, so this is the actual game that I've highlighted here. And what we do is we say, okay, I'm gonna keep running the game while the number of jelly beans is greater than or equal to 3, right? And once it's not, namely once it's 2, 0, or 1, we're gonna go ahead and stop. And what I've done is I've taken a proportion of the jelly beans that are red at the start of any draw and said, okay, well, I'll use that to kind of get a general sense for whether I should take 3 jelly beans that are red, 2 jelly beans that are red, or not. So you can hopefully kind of figure this out. If you've got questions about the code itself, definitely feel free to ask. But this is definitely not the best way to go ahead and solve this problem. So everything outside of the blue highlight is just keeping track of what the outcomes are. So let me go ahead and run this. And it'll take just a second there to compile and run. And it'll tell us at the end how many are left of each of the types of jelly beans. And what we find is that with this particular run, I either end up with, and this is 100 trials here. I end up with 1 of each or none. And I have none of the other possibilities. And so let me up this to 1,000 trials just so we can get those frequencies a little bit more accurate instead of 71 to 29. I think it ends up being more like 65 and 34, 65 and 35 rather. And we could do it 100,000 times. It wouldn't take very long. But what we find is that actually we're either going to get none or 1 each. And so if we kind of go back, and let's see if that has anything to do with the starting point, start at 2018 and go ahead and run it, we're going to get a different outcome. Okay, and so we'll discuss why that is in just a moment. Okay, so in that case, we get neither 1 each, nor none, nor 2 red, nor 1 green. So what the heck? What does this have to do with how many we started with? And the answer is that it's a lot more simple than kind of counting down. And what I want you to consider in this problem is not the number of jelly beans, but the difference between the number of red and the number of green. Okay, because if I start out with 2019 and 2019, okay, the difference, and I'll just call that delta, is equal to 0 here. All right. Now, if you look at the possible outcomes for your game, I can either have one go down by 3, right? Or I can have them both go down by 1, -1 and -1. Okay, -1 and -1. In either situation, the difference is either going to not change, right? The change is here going to be 0 if they both go down by 1, or here the difference is going to change by 3. It's either going to go up by 3 or down by 3, depending on how you're viewing the difference. More greens and more reds. Okay, so as this tails down to say like 5 and 2, right? The difference here is equal to 3. Now, it has to be a multiple of 3, right? The difference has to be a multiple of 3 because the only change to that difference could possibly be 3. So when you think about it that way, hopefully it starts to make a little bit more sense why you can end up with either 0, 0 or 1, 1, because the difference has to be a multiple of 3 or 0. And because we're getting down to the point where we have fewer than 3 jelly beans, the only difference could be 0 because we can't have a difference of 3. There's fewer than 3 total. So hopefully that makes sense for you.